Assalamualaikum. Let's start our session. So, welcome everyone to our very first session of webinars. The topic of which we can see is HDR research, which means high dynamic range imaging. The topic itself is very interesting as we all have used somehow HDR mode in our mobile phone cameras. So today at this platform, we'll get inside how this thing works. We have Dr. Ishtiaq Rasool Khan with us, who has diversified experience of over 2 decades in this field and signal processing, and he has over 100 publications to his name. He has done remarkable work in HDR imaging and video encoding, tone mapping, dynamic range compression, and data clustering, so on. So without wasting any more time, so let's just start our session. Over to you, Dr. Khan.
Thank you, Mukaddas. Okay, so this talk will be about high dynamic range imaging. In short, we call it HDRI. This field is called HDRI. So in HDRI, actually, we talk about high dynamic range imaging, then the applications, tone mapping, visualization, etc. And I will go through some aspects of HDRI today. My name is Ishtiaq Rasool Khan. I was professor at University of Jeddah till recently, and I moved to Abu Dhabi School of Management just like a couple of months ago. Here is a little brief about me. I did my electrical engineering from UET, Texla, then master MS in system engineering, MS in information engineering, PhD in applied physics, and I worked at Hokkaido University for 2 years, then University of Kyushu for almost 5 years, then Kyushu Institute of Technology for 2 years. Then I moved to Singapore and worked there for almost 4.5 years. Then in Saudi Arabia for 10 years, and now here in Abu Dhabi School of Management. When we talk about image and video quality, actually the target is always quality. When we talk about HDR imaging or any other sort of imaging, the actual target, actual goal is to enhance the quality of image and video. When we talk about quality, there are few things. One is spatial resolution. Like we want to increase the number of pixels. So more pixels in the same area will give us better perception. You might have heard about these high HD, UHD, Ultra HD, 2K, 4K, 8K. These are actually, we are adding more and more pixels in the same area. And second thing is frame rate. We can call it faster pixels. Like we want the higher frame rates. In 1 second, 30 is usually minimum we want to have. But now for gaming, we go up to 120 and more. Color gamut is the range of colors. I will show this in a little bit more in next slide. A dynamic range is like what is the ratio of the darkest pixel, brightest pixel. So if our darkest pixel, when we say HDR TV, then we are talking about what is the minimum luminance this TV can show, and what is the maximum it can show on screen. This is the topic we are going to discuss today: high dynamic range imaging. In this diagram, you see this is about color gamut. Just now, you see this is the whole color diagram. And we have several standards. The innermost triangle, you can see it covers less colors, and this is what is used by most of current televisions. This is called REC 709. That is like a standard by ITU, and 709 standard. And this covers this much range, which is shown by the innermost triangle. The next one is proposed by Adobe, and this is not very popular for TVs. But for TV, we have and displays, we have DCI E3, and then the latest one is REC 2020. And REC 2020, you can see that this is the highest, the largest triangle. It covers a lot of colors. Still, there are many colors like in this region, in the green side, higher green side, and red, which are not covered. But this is what we have now. The best display you can have will cover these colors. And this is color gamut. But this is not our topic today. We are more on, we will talk more on high dynamic range imaging. When we say high dynamic range, then as I said, is the ratio of brightest and darkest intensity levels. And if you see this image, and on the right side and on one of the left side, you can see on the right side, the darks are not very dark and brights are not very bright. Whereas on the left side, you can see shadows and color, the high intensity pixels more. Although both are LDR right now because our display is LDR, but this is the concept. Like you have brights and darker darks. In real world, we have luminance which covers very large range. So zero is very difficult to achieve. There is no absolute zero brightness. After some time, you start seeing something. But we can start with like 10 to power minus 6. And if you talk about starlight, this is here around 10 to power minus 4. And this is candela per meter square, or we call it nits or lux. All units are the same, candela per meter square or lux or nits. They are used in different communities. Like for the TV industry, they want to call it nits, and cameras, or they call it like lux mostly. And in the research, we call it CD, candela per meter square. When we talk about moonlight, this is around 10 to power minus 2 nits. And then indoor lighting, if you have a lamp, it's around 100. In the sunlight, we have up to 10 to power 6 in very bright day. And if you see at the sun directly, it will be around 10 to power 8. Now, our eyes are very specially designed. They can see in all these ranges. Okay, so we have rods in our eyes and we have cones in our eyes. At the in the darker regions, in the darker places, our rod functions more. Rods function more, and in the bright areas, our cones take over and they function more. So you see in this, and rods, they are sensitive to low light. So in this region, we have no color. When it's very dark, you cannot see the color. But once the light increases in this region, photopic region, we have good acuity of color. And this is normally when we talk about high dynamic range imaging. In the natural scenes, we have very bright areas and we have very dark areas also. So our eyes can adopt, where if you go to a very dark room, after some time you start seeing because our rods start functioning. And if you suddenly turn on the light in the same dark room, for one moment you will go blind. But then again, it will be very, very bright. After some time, just like a millisecond, you adjust to the change in the light. But now the problem comes with the cameras. Cameras are not adaptable like our eyes. So they cannot capture all this range, right? So what we do normally is we capture some pictures or one or two frames at high exposure time. So we can capture these areas. And then we reduce the capture exposure time and we capture some areas then here and we combine them. So one HDR image is constructed by using multiple frames, like 3 or more usually frames we take, and we combine them to get HDR image. Then the second thing comes, although we can capture HDR image using this technique, how can we display them on screen? Because our screens also cannot show them. So all these issues are with HDR imaging, and we will talk about them in this talk. When we talk about HDR, what exactly is HDR? So there are different definitions. One term for cameras is used f-stop. F-stop means ratio. When we double the brightness from any value to double of it, we say we have increased by 1 f-stop. So if one scene has a range less than 10 f-stops, which means the ratio of the brightest pixel to the darkest pixel is less than 10 f-stop, which is 2 to power 10, or in log domain, if we say the ratio is less than 10, we say this is LDR scene, a low dynamic range. And EDR is term very rarely used, but some people use it. Enhanced dynamic range, from 10 to 16 f-stops, and high dynamic range is more than 16 f-stops. But commonly, this EDR and HDR both are considered as HDR. A real-world scene can reach up to 27 f-stops. So the darkest pixel here in this scene, and if you compare it with the brightest pixel here, the sun, the ratio will be around 2 to the power 27. In the real world scenes, it can reach up to this level. So now I think you understand the problem of HDR. The real scenes have very high ratio, very high dynamic range, but our cameras and our TVs, they cannot reach this range. And actually for our TVs, we do not want them to reach this range because we don't want to show the real sun on our screen. Actually, we cannot show this brightness. And even if we are able to show, it will burn everything. So we don't want to show. So the research is how we show this image on screen that it looks natural. Not exactly 27 f-stops, but we do some manipulation that it looks real and natural. So LDR image, as I said, is usually we store them using 8 bits, 25 to 56 quantization levels. So if we take like minimum is 0 and maximum is 255, so there we can use 8 bits to represent them. But HDR images, we cannot store them using these 8 bits or integer values. So what we do, we store them in floating point formats because they can take any value. So floating point format is best for HDR images. But as you understand as computer engineers and scientists, the storage of floating point data takes very large memory. So we have to store them in some finite precision. So we use usually 16 bits or sometimes for the production of movies, HDR movies for TVs, 10 or 12 bits are also used more commonly. Because when we stream like Netflix or YouTube, then 16 bits is too large actually. So 10 bits or 12 bits are used. So we have some lossy formats also. This is also one aspect of HDR imaging. When we see advertisements on mobile phones like HDR mode, this is not really HDR. What they do is they capture HDR images and they combine them to produce another LDR image. They do not give us HDR image, they give us another LDR image, which is after combining these LDR images, they do some processing that some pixels not captured once, they replace pixels taken from the other image, and this is another LDR image. The basic idea is the same. We take multiple images, we create an HDR image in the pipeline, but the final output is still LDR. We do tone mapping and we show LDR image. HDR displays, and there are some standards for them. One is display HDR. This is industry is adopting this standard. Another standard is from VISA, Video Electronic Standard Association. And you might have seen the TVs in the market which say display HDR 400, 500, 600, 1000, 1400. These are values tell you the nits, the maximum brightness it can show. So if you have a TV which says display HDR 1400, this means they can show up to 1400 nits. Usually HDR TV which in the market are around like 400 or less. But the displays, they reach more like 2000, 3000. If we go to the latest OLED technology, we have this OLED is good, like it can have like a normal LCD TV. If you just display a black screen, it will still show some light because black is not really black. But for OLED, the black is really black. So if you just display black screen, there will be no light in the room. So the maximum value here is 400. These are the standards commonly used. HDR market size, there is prediction that will grow at a growth rate of 25%. Now this value 13,760 billions or 13.7 billions. It will reach up to this value 126 billions by 2030. Now the production, if you talk about camera pipelines, this is how it works. We have original scene which has very high dynamic here on the left. When we capture it, the production for HDR, then during post-production, mastering is a technique where we display the image on a certain standard display. and we adjust, we fine tune the colors, brightness, everything on the master display. This is called mastering. Now, if your TV is exactly the same as a master display, you will exactly see what the producer wants you to see. But no, usually this is not the case. The master display is not cannot be the same in every home or every lab or everywhere. So what happens? There will be some changes again. If you put some other display, it will each display has certain curves which will it apply on the actual content to enhance the contents. So this is that for HDR displays, the more recent ones. Currently, what we have in our standard cameras, this is actual dynamic range for the scene. When we capture, it's further reduced a lot. Then during post-production and mastering, after mastering, when we distribute, we quantize it to 8 bits, as I said before. So actual dynamic range, which is shown on the display, is very small, which comes to our eyes. So this is difference between HDR displays and LDR. Here is this is what you see on HDR display, and this is very small ratio of it which you see on LDR display. Now, in the HDR research, these are the topics. I talked about them a little bit, but here is the list. One is content creation. Obviously, we want to create HDR images. Then, how to store them. We cannot store the raw data in floating point because it will take a lot of memory. And so we have these formats: RGBE, log LUV, OpenEXR. For distribution, now there are a lot of industry standards. You might have seen these names: HDR10, HDR10 Plus, HLG, and Dolby Vision DV. So this Dolby Vision and HDR10 Plus, these are now most adopted standards. Almost all TVs which are coming in the market, they are HDR10 Plus because this is open standard. But some of them, or most of them actually, they have DV also, Dolby Vision. Dolby charges them for a little bit. For each TV, they charge around $2 to $3. So, but which is not very high price. But this D is also quite good format. Fourth topic, which is the most researched so far, is visualization on LDR TVs. You see, for each transition, when we moved from black and white TV to color TV, there was a lot of research how we convert our color content for old black and white TVs. Similarly here, now we have HDR content. How can we see them? How can we visualize them on standard LDR TV sets? This process is called tone mapping, right? Another area is visualization, which is like on the HDR TVs, how can we display content on them? As I said before, we cannot show the actual HDR range on this TV. We cannot reach this because there will be sun, there will be very bright, even the lamp bulbs. We cannot show them on TV. Our LEDs cannot handle this much light. So still we need to do some tone mapping. Lesser than this, but obviously we have to do it here. So that's the reason in the production side, when they produce and stream, they do this like HDR10, HDR10 Plus, or DV. They can be shown directly on HDR TV. We do not need tone mapping for them. Then it comes to HDR video. Image is one thing, but when we talk about video, there will be temporal coherence issues. The transition from one frame to the frame, right? When you're tone mapping, there will be sudden change because tone mapping is bringing them from very big range to smaller range. And if suddenly there is scene change, the range will be very different. So there will be flickering effects will happen there. Another thing is to measure the quality, image quality analysis or image quality assessment. We call them IQA, and there are the easiest way, or not easiest, most difficult way actually, but the best way is to do subjective evaluation. You ask many people, humans, to evaluate whether this quality is good or not. But this is not practical, so we have some metrics also, TMQI, FSITM, and many more. Then another research is how good these metrics are. Obviously, humans will perceive some quality, and whether this metric can tell us what is the quality which humans will perceive, how accurately this can do. So another research is to evaluate the IQ metrics, actually, like how well they are performing. And then there are certain industrial applications, and I will talk about some of them today. The first topic will be visualization. like tone mapping, because this is the most researched topic. And still, the most papers are coming on this tone mapping, because there are a lot of LDR TVs, and if not TVs, then we have projectors, and we have printers. Even if we have all TV sets today changed to HDR TV sets, still we will need tone mapping. For example, in camera preview, we don't want to see HDR there, and then as I said, the projectors and printers, they need tone mapping. So tone mapping in one sentence is transformation from HDR image to LDR image for viewing on existing displays. And tone mapping is something like this. We have HDR on the x-axis here and LDR on y-axis. Now you have to come up with the, excuse me, we have to come up with some curve which will transform from HDR to LDR. So one way will be you just make a straight line here. And it will just map from HDR to LDR. But this obviously will not be a very good idea. So people have come up with many different curves. Each tone mapping operator or algorithm will come up with its own curve based on the content. Usually the curve looks like this. Like very dark values will be mapped to bright values, and bright values will be truncated, less enhanced here. So curve can look like anything. Based on the curve, our image will look like here, or this one. You can see there is difference in these two. So this is one algorithm, this is second algorithm. Now, which one is better? This is again like subjective, or we have the objective metrics for this. I will talk about them. Now, one of the many tone mapping methods is that we use histogram. So it's natural that we say that the pixels which are which are more in an image in a number, those pixels should be enhanced more. Okay, so if this region, this segment has the largest number of pixels, and if I enhance these pixels, right, then my image should look good. Look, the problem is like we have very large range here on HDR x-axis, and we have to convert it to LDR, smaller range. So obviously there will be some adjustment, like which pixels should be given more resources. If we talk in this term, resources. Let's say resources. Like our TV can have 250, or image can have 255, 256 intervals, right? Starting from 0 to 255. Now each HDR value has to be mapped to one of those, either 0, 1, 2, 3, up to 255. Now, if we map, so one obvious way is that the pixels, which are the regions which have more pixels, they should be allocated more display levels from x-axis, right? So histogram is one way to do this. We draw a histogram, then we make a cumulative histogram, and then we shrink it to this range from 0 to the maximum, which is 255 here. So here you can see that these pixels, they are more here in this image. This segment has more, this range of intensity has more pixels. So slope is more here. So more slope means the more pixel will be assigned on x-axis to this range. So our image should look good. So this is one method for tone mapping, which is based on histogram. Now, there are problems with this method, two main problems. One problem is if some region is very uniform, like this region shown in this big rectangle, we do not want to allocate many pixels or many display intervals to this region. A sky is blue, let's say it's uniform blue, it can be shown by one level of on display intervals. But we do not want to allocate so many intervals on display to blue color. Otherwise, it will look very distorted, right? So this is called over-enhancement. So if we use histogram-based method, because in this image, for example, there are more blue pixels, so more display levels will be allocated to blue color, and it will look distorted. Similarly, if some regions do not have many pixels, they are very sparse bins at some places, then those regions will be compressed. So these are called over-enhancement and over-compression in histogram-based methods. One way to handle this is to use our human visual system. All tone mapping operators, they consider in some way human visual system. One method is, which I used in one of our research, is that we saw how the rods perform and how the cones perform in our eyes. And then we calculated the sensitivity. This model is already available. This is called TVI model. So at which adaptation level, which background level, x-axis here is background level, intensity level. Y-axis is telling us our human visual system's sensitivity. So you can see here, this is log scale, by the way, log. So when we are in very bright environment, let's say in the daylight, if someone turns on a bulb on street, a lamp on the street, we will not notice it even. And that's the reason we do not even see stars in the daytime. But at night, if there is slight change in the light, in the brightness, we will notice it very easily. Like someone turns on the light in the dark, we will see it. But in the daytime outside, we may not even notice it. So this is the way we can use this observation or this model to construct our histogram. So idea is, like the regions where our system is more sensitive, we make more bins in that area, more histogram bins. And this region where our eye is not very sensitive, right? So in bright daylight, we may not notice small changes. So we allocate smaller number of bins in histogram in this area. So this term is called JND, just noticeable difference. Just noticeable difference is, it depends on the background light. So what we did is we have equal number of just noticeable differences for each bin. But you can see on this axis here on the right side, actual width is very different in linear domain. So this bin is small, next bin is larger, next bin is even larger, next will be further larger, and so on. So what we are actually doing is, this region where our human visual system is very sensitive, we are making more bins in this area. So this way we can handle this problem of non-uniformity or over compression, over enhancement. Second thing what we did is that we did not count all the pixels. We said all the pixels which are within one JND, within one just noticeable difference, we count them only once, right? This makes sense. Because if there are, as I said, if the whole sky is blue and whole image, 50% of the image is all blue, we don't want to count all those pixels. Here we count them as one. So these two things we did in our algorithm, and this algorithm was quite fast. It can, on CPU, we achieved 3.9 frame per second, and GPU, we obtained like 87 frame per second. For this resolution, it is very low. But even for the larger images, we have 24 frame per second on GPU. We could achieve even 2.5 to 4.5x faster. And this FPGA implementation was done at LUMS. And this works in real time, actually. And the speed is okay for our algorithm. And how about visual quality? So I will show you some results here. This is a result by Larson, which is very famous algorithm. And on the right side is our algorithm. So you can see it's better enhanced, especially these regions, the very bright regions here. Its quality is much better. And I have shown some zoomed views here. And here also you can see there are more details. This is another algorithm, Reinhardt, which is the most popular actually. And here again, we can see that our algorithm is working better. In this image also, this is Larson, this is Reinhardt, and this is our algorithm. One more time, this is here, so you can see this is this view from the outside. We can see more details in our image. And some more results here, Larson, our image, then Reinhardt versus ours. Here, Larson, Reinhardt, ours. Larson on the left side, our result on the right side. This Reinhardt versus ours. Okay, so these are some visual results, but obviously we cannot visually compare all the images, right? So what we do we use one TMQI, objective metric, and this can be used for very large number of images. So there was one data set by Ward. This is same person actually, Lawson. He uses two family names, sometimes Ward, sometimes Lawson, in different papers. So he has 9 images in his data set, and our score was much better than all other algorithms, Larson, Reinhardt, and Kim. TMPA, this is another data set, and we've scored better. Reinhardt, 42 images, our score is higher than all other algorithms. Font data set has 105 HDR images, our score is higher here also. For you can see the number of wins. For WARD, we won 9 out of 9 all images. For EMPA, 29, and so on here. For font, 105 images, we won on 86 images. We did subjective studies also by user studies, and you can see for almost all the images, this cross is our score. We got higher score from users. There were 40 participants. We showed them all images side by side in random order. And the user study, we followed all the standards procedures, and we had highest score in user studies. Okay, now this method, ATT algorithm, we call it ATT Adaptive TVI TMO. This has been extended by many researchers, especially Hamza and Dr. Adil. They did FPGA implementation, then Noreen and Dr. Nadeem, they extended to video. Abdurrahman also worked on video on FPGA. Dr. Nadeem is working on some specific applications for using this algorithm. Some other group worked on extension on medical images, and this group in China, they extended for viewing conditions, by changing viewing conditions, how the algorithm performs. And recently, this also the same group in China did use some clustering to enhance this algorithm, ATT algorithm. Okay, so this was about our visualization mapping part, and next I will talk a little bit about image quality assessment. So usually when we want to evaluate the quality of our images, on map images, as I said before, we have some metrics like FSITM, and there are many more. What we do to evaluate the quality is we use some visual comparisons or some subjective evaluations. And then there are objective image quality assessments, which are like, sometimes we do full reference where the users can see the actual image also, and sometimes we use blind metrics. Like these metrics do not have the actual image with them, they just the blind image. So these are some of the metrics we have here. I will not go in detail. And these are some blind metrics. The first, previously, they take two actual image and the tone mapped image, and these blind metrics, they take only the tone mapped image and use some learning tools, and they evaluate the quality of the image. The limitation is that although we can test these metrics on one set of images, but we cannot generalize their results. How will they perform on? This is also very interesting research. How we evaluate the quality of these IQA metrics, and I will talk about this little bit. How we do this? We have some mapped images, TMIs, and we ask humans to score them. Okay, so humans, like we take 40 or 50 people, and they will assign scores to these images, each image. And then we take the average score for each image here, right? And then we ask the metric to give the score to the same images. And now we calculate correlation. Okay, so if the correlation is high, then we say that this metric is performing, it can replicate the human visual system. So we can trust this metric. And then next time, instead of asking humans to evaluate some images, we can ask the metric to do this job, right? This is one approach. Another approach I will show now in this discussion now. First, let me talk about this one slide only on population-based optimization. You know, there are many functions. We have many techniques to find the optimal solution. And normally we use gradient descent or some other methods for optimization. But one approach, which is population-based approach or called meta-heuristics, is that we generate a lot of solutions, random solutions. Okay, so let's say we say these could be possible solutions. Then we keep changing them, right? There are some methods to keep, we call it differential evolution or I will talk about this in the next slide. So we have many solutions and we keep changing them, hoping that at some point we will find the best solution. Okay, so like right now the best solution may be here or here. So this population will keep changing over iterations, and then finally at some point we will reach the optimal solution. Okay, so this approach is AI-based approach, and it's called meta-heuristics. The idea here is like this. So what we do, you might have heard about genetic algorithms. Like in evolution, there are these stages. We have a population of species, and then after this population has a crossover and mutation process, and then there is selection, the survival of the fittest. So this is like the theory of evolution, that how the human race evolves, like, this is very popular algorithms in artificial intelligence. So here, how we use it. What we do, we take some HDR images, we apply some TMOs on them, we get some LDR images, and we represent them in a standard form, okay? And we add some random solutions also here, and then all these solutions we let them do some crossover and mutation, okay? How we do this? This is a detailed topic, but I will not go in detail. Actually, we keep mixing their parameters. So on crossover and mutation, we get some new solutions, okay? So let's say from here we got 50 new solutions. Now we apply a metric, okay? And we calculate the quality of all these 50 solutions. And those who perform the best, we keep them, right? And those who do not perform well, we discard them. Now these solutions again go back to the same process. We add some more random solutions there. Again, the crossover and mutation process happens. We get another 50 solutions. We keep some of them which are better than previous ones using this metric. This metric evaluates the quality. Those who are better, we keep them. Those who are worse than the previous one, we discard them. And we keep doing this in a loop until there is a termination happens. And when does it happen? At one point, our score will be very high, right? For some image, we stop. We say, okay, we have got an image of very high quality, so we will stop here. Or we can say, okay, let's stop after 200 iterations, 300 iterations. So every iteration is giving us better and better and better solutions, ideally, right? If this metric is doing its job well, then our solutions should be better. Our tone mapped images should improve over the iteration, right? Now, this is detail of mutation, etc. I will just skip. Okay, now again, I repeat, our expectation is if the metric is performing well, if metric is good, the final solution should be a very high quality image, right? But what happens actually? We use TMQI and see the result. Original image in the beginning, this was a score 0.81, and it increased the score to 0.92, but you see the image has been distorted a lot. So what does this tell us? Although the score is very high here, the metric is kind of deceived by our algorithm. The actual quality did not improve, but the score improved, right? Same here, the first image which we gave as input, one of the images, the score was 0.6. But after like few iterations, we got this image, the score improved to 0.86. But quality is very bad, very poor quality, deteriorated a lot here, like especially around the lights and these dark areas and everywhere. The color is not there anymore. So one more result here. This is very interesting. The score did not improve, but you see the quality. So one more here. The left side is 0.85, right side is 0.94. So what does this tell us about the metric TMQI? It tells us that it's very easy to cheat or to deceive this metric, TMQI. This was a stress test for this metric, right? So this is our method to check the quality of metrics. So in both cases, it's win-win for us. If metric is very good, I come back to the previous slide. If metric is very good, what will happen? We get an image of very high quality. If metric is poor, we can tell this metric is good. So this is doing two jobs for us. We tested TMQI and I showed you the results here. So TMQI has a bad metric. We did with TMQI2, which is an improved version, and still you can see the quality, like especially this image. This is on the lower right side, 0.74 for this image, and this image which has a lot of deterioration in the center. These effects, artifacts here, the quality is actually increased to 0.81. So TMQI2 is also not reliable metric. We went with FSITM. This is another metric, and you can see here also like there are artifacts here and there, although the score improved. We tested another metric, NLPD, and actually this was a challenge given to us by the reviewer. He said that your method cannot beat this NLPD, and see here, we improved it, and he had to accept our paper then. Actual quality score was 0.39 for this image, and this one, the smaller score shows high quality actually for this metric. So quality improved here. The smaller score shows high quality for this NLPD. So, but you see it's very dark. Similarly for this metric here, the actual was 0.5, but it reduced, it increased to 0.09. Increase means the quality increased. Lower score shows high quality. So this metric also failed. Then we have another few other metrics also. So I don't go in detail of these. This is another research which I have focused on. We can talk about this in some other talk. This is very interesting, and there are a lot of opportunities to increase, to enhance, to further improve this research and design better metrics actually. Okay, now I will quickly go to the last part. So we are here. I talked about the visualization and this evaluation of IQA metrics. Now I will talk about a little bit about the content creation, how we generate HDR images. So we take multiple images. See here on the bottom we have 4 images taken on different exposure times, -4, -2 EV, +2 EV, and +4 EV, and we combine them all, and then we get this image which is on top. Second method is like we use HDR sensors, which can capture a bigger light. So we can use those sensors. So these are two methods, MEF or multiple exposure fusion, or HDR sensors we can use directly. The one biggest issue with HDR content creation is the ghosting artifacts. So what happens if if our scene is moving, like here, the flame is moving here. So in one image, flame will be here, and second image, flame is here, and third image, flame is here. When you combine them, you see these ghosting effects here. Similarly, for this flag, you see some ghosting. So this is the major issue in content creation. We proposed one algorithm for this, and the idea is that when we merge the images, we use some we use some mathematics, some camera model to predict where this, like in this case, this person is here. So in next image, we can predict where this person should be. What should be the value on these pixels if this person has to be here. Then after this modification, after this transformation, then we merge the images. Okay, so this is called motion compensation. So after this, we can merge them. So you see, this was the reference image. In the next image, people have moved, but we want them to be back on their actual positions. So we brought them back here using our algorithm. And you can see this is deghosting. When we merge them, if you don't do any deghosting, there will be shadows like this. If you use this commercial algorithm, picture not, you will see some ghosting here. And this is very popular algorithm by Turson. You see some ghosts here, but our algorithm completely deghosts everything. So this is also one thing we worked on. Next thing is distribution. This is the latest topic now. HDR10, HDR10 plus, and these things. So let me go to them. So this is the idea here. We have HDR image. We apply a TMO, tone mapping operator on this. Then we represent this tone mapped image in a standard form using only 256 points. This is another algorithm we developed. And the actual pipeline for HDR10 is here. We have RGB to R dash, B dash, G dash, perceptual encoding. Then we convert to ICBCR. Then from 444, we do some decimation. We do this 420. Then we encode it to 10 bits, this image, and we have HEVC coded. This is HDR10 pipeline. So all new TVs, their content creation is they follow this pipeline and they produce HDR10 images. What we did, we modified this pipeline. So we do in the offline mode, when we are producing content, we do tone mapping, we extract 256 points, then we add these 256 points to actual content. So this is very small overhead. Actual image is very large, right? We just add 256 integer points here, floating points. And then we send it to the receiver. It's streamed. This content is streamed. Then on the encoder side, we extract these points, right? And then we use these points to convert this image to LDR. Okay. So if you have an LDR TV, it will show LDR picture. If you have an HDR TV, it will directly show the actual content. So this same pipeline, same content can be used both for HDR and LDR. And this is very good industrial application. If there is some collaborator from industry, this can be actually implemented. So these are some papers, if you are interested on this topic. We had some, these are all from 2022 onwards, so new words. We can have application in, we had some work on mobile license plate detection, because the HDR imaging can capture text in unconstrained environment better. There are lights, there are shadows. So HDR images, they perform very well. In scene analysis, security applications, in medical imaging, in content creation and content delivery, these are the applications for HDR images. So these are the topics we talked a little bit about today, very fast, but I hope you got some idea. So now, if you have any questions, we can answer them.
So there is an online question here in the chat. The question is it right to say that HDR tone mapping is an improved way of doing gamma correction?
Doing what?
Gamma correction.
Sorry, I didn't understand.
So it's like, is it right way to say that HDR tone mapping is an improved way of doing gamma correction? Like gamma correction का advanced version of tone mapping.
No. Gamma correction is basically from LDR to LDR. Okay, we have an LDR image, and then there is a TV, and TV has a different characteristics. So based on that, or in the cameras also, camera manufacturers, they have their own parameters. But gamma correction is from LDR to LDR. HDR is like content, the range is higher, it's bigger range. And then we can tone map. If you want to use the gamma correction, it can be used actually for tone mapping, but it will not, because gamma correction is designed for certain gamut, for the lower range. It doesn't work on the higher brightness values. So the values you will get, they will not show the actual brightness, or obviously not actual brightness, but the colors will also be not correct. So this is a very crude method of tone mapping, but this is not used by anyone, because this is designed for low range contents, low dynamic range contents.
So any more questions?
Assalamu alaikum. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
डॉक्टर इश्तियाक, आपने TVI मॉडल का जिक्र किया था कि all tone mapping operators are based on human visual system. और उसमें आपने बताया था कि टीवीआई मॉडल पे बेस्ड आपकी रिसर्च थी। तो टीवीआई मॉडल कितने ऑब्जर्वर्स के ऊपर बेस्ड है, या मतलब वो कैसे डेवलप हुआ है? हाउ मेनी
टीवीआई
ऑब्जर्वर्स वर इन्वॉल्वड इन दैट?
टीवीआई मॉडल डेवलप हुआ था 19 समथिंग 1980 1985 में लोगों ने डेवलप किया था। तो उन्होंने ये किया कि दे पुट ह्यूमन इन वेरी डार्क रूम, fully dark. So screen pay is all black, okay? And they keep increasing the brightness, and they ask the person to to note down when they experience some change. When they notice some change, they have to mention it. They have to note down. So इस तरह उन्होंने बहुत सारे humans पे they did the same experiment. And when there is on each different backgrounds, for example, the current room is very dark, then they increase the brightness a bit, and then they kept increasing and asked them to notice the change. So when they were able to notice, they took that value. That's one JND, just noticeable difference. तो इस तरह उन्होंने TBI मॉडल बनाया था और उसमें मेरा ख्याल है काफी comprehensive research थी. I don't remember how many people. It's very well known model and quite used by many people. But this is not the only model. There are many human visual system models which can be used instead of TBI.
Okay, thank you. Just one more question. आपने डिगोस्टिंग का खत्म करने का एक एल्गोरिथम बताया था, which was based on merging of two frames, right?
Yes.
Multiple frames merging based पे था.
Yes, merging actually causes ghosting because
Yes.
if in one frame the flame is here and the next one is there, so it will cause ghosting. Yes.
Yes. So my question is which data set or image sensor you targeted? मतलब वो images multiple exposure वाली वो कहाँ से आपके पास, in which data set you were?
They are available. They are available in public domain. So
Okay.
if you look in our paper also, we have mentioned the source.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
So I have one related merging the images. So the merging algorithm, that it is operated on RGB images at different exposures, or is it operated on raw images at different exposures?
It is operated on raw images at different exposures, ideally. But if you don't have the raw images, which can be applied on all channels, RGB channels or YCBCR channels also. The idea is that the idea here is that we use a mathematical model to predict values. Okay, in the region where we detect motion, where we detect ghosting, we predict values there from other frames and we replace them. Okay, so it can work on RGB channels, it can work on any YCVCR, but ideally, if we have the actual raw data, it will work better. On the last slide, I have my email address also. If anyone has any questions or want to do the work on HDR domain, you're always welcome.
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.